Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Film Chronicles. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down my top 5 horror list from HBOMax. This is going to be the final video in that top 5 series, so if you guys have been watching the other ones, I can't thank you guys enough. If you guys are new to the channel and just clicked on this video, welcome. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you guys smash that like button for me, that way it helps boost the video. If you guys are new here, do subscribe and do consider hitting that notification bell because there are going to be a couple of new videos that I'll be dropping out after this one. So expect those videos to come, and if you guys love the stuff, show the love. I would totally appreciate it. With that being said, let's get into this list. So as previously mentioned, this is going to be HBO Max, so if you guys do have this streaming service, this is going to be perfect for you. If you guys need any help deciding what movies to watch, so yeah, let's go in with the number 1 on the list here. So up first we have An American Werewolf in London, directed and written by John Landis, and made possible by Universal Pictures. This is one of the top definitive werewolf horror movies, without question. I know that there's other horror werewolf movies, out there that are pretty damn good, but I feel like that this specific movie just kind of elevates everything. It's portrayed as a horror slash kind of comedy, and it has like a weird dark sense of humor that actually does work and kind of elevates the film itself. So basically it follows 2 Americans backpacking through Yorkshire, and they come across presumably another werewolf that ends up attacking them and killing one of the friends, and that's pretty much, this movie came out in 1981, so if you guys are for fear of spoilers, I'm sorry, but it's kind of been a pretty long while. And this is a classic movie. I mean, it has some crazy scenes. The creature design is phenomenal. It's all practical effects. The camera shots are really, really good, and it actually has a decent story at the center of it, I would say. And with that weird sense of humor, it does make the movie really, really fun to watch and kind of sit through and see what unfolds on screen. I don't want to give anything else away. If you guys, have not seen this, it is such a classic movie that it's so worth seeing, just based on the design alone, and the story itself is really, really cool, like I said. So yeah, be sure to try to catch this on HBO Max while it's here. It's definitely one of the better, horror films to watch right now. Number 1 for a reason, guys. So now we're gonna jump into number 2. So number 2 is going to be Warner Brothers' It. This one came out in 2017, directed by Andy Muschietti, written by a couple different directors and screenwriters. Most notably, Cary Fukunaga was actually attached to this film. He is responsible for True Detective, which is also another HBO series. Actually, it's probably a really damn good mystery thriller series that I'd recommend watching. He was originally attached on this project at one point with Will Poulter, who's well known for his character in We're the Millers as the fake brother, I would say. Really, really interesting concept to kind of get behind, to see him portray Pennywise. But with this film, this is again directed by Andy Muschietti, who's responsible for Mama, which was executively produced by Guillermo del Toro. And this stars Bill Skarsgård as the titular Pennywise the Clown, and it does have a really, really good young cast that kind of got propelled into Hollywood fame, which is pretty awesome. So we had Jaden Martell as Bill Denbrough, Jeremy Ray Taylor as Ben Hanscom, Sophia Lillis as Beverly Marsh, and Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things as Beep Beep Richie Tozier. We had Wyatt Oleff as Stanley Uris, and then we had Chosen Jacobs as Mike Hanlon, and we had Jack Dylan Grazer as Eddie Kasprak. And Jack Dylan Grazer is most notably in Shazam and a couple other HBO produced movies and series. Really, really good cast, really unique. They all jived really, really well together, and they really brought the characters from the page to life, more so than the actual miniseries. The miniseries was actually really good. I'm not trying to bash on it or anything like that, but I think a lot of the reason why it's good is just because of Tim Curry's phenomenal performance as Pennywise. Just because of that, it elevated the film. I think the child cast was really strong in that movie, but maybe not as strong as in this version of the movie. And then I would say chapter 1 outweighs chapter 2 by a mile, even for the original TV series and this new 2 chapters that just came out. I feel like the young cast just elevates the movie entirely. And man, Bill Skarsgård as Pennywise was probably such a great choice to go with, even though Will Poulter would have been cool too. So catch this on HBO Max. 1 and 2 is on, so yeah, there's no reason not to see it. And coming in for number 3, we have Annabelle Creation, another film directed by the infamous David Sandberg, who again did Lights Out and Shazam. I talked about Lights Out in Hulu's top 5, so be sure to click that video. So this movie actually takes place in the Conjuring universe, or the Conjuring cinematic universe, if you will. It's actually a prequel to Annabelle, so it just pretty much details who Annabelle actually really is, and where the doll comes into play into the narrative and why it's possessed. And it's a really good entry. I think it's one of the stronger films that were made for the Conjuring universe, because you have the Conjuring 1, 2, you have 3 coming out later this year. You had the first Annabelle, then you have this Annabelle, and then you had Annabelle Comes Home. Then there's the Curse of Yad Yadona. Then there's also another film I can't think of right off the top of my head, but there's a lot of films in this universe, and I think that this one is the more standout film. It was written by Gary Dauberman, and it was again produced by James Wan, and I like that Sandberg relied on practical effects as much as he could again, and I think it really helps elevate typical ghost stories that we expect to see on screen, just because you're always expecting a jump scare, and I like films that don't rely on jump scares, so I think that's a big plus of this movie. Also, the child cast again is really great, and I think that the adult characters in the film are portrayed really well. They're not really typical movie tropes, and I think there is a lot more to this movie than a lot of people give credit for. I don't know if it's because it didn't get enough jump scares or something like that, but I think it is definitely one of the better films to come out in the year 2017 as far as horror films. But then again, we just talked about It, so that's another top contender right there. But if you guys haven't seen this, go see this if you guys want to be scared. I was actually pretty scared. I kind of went into this with an expectation to be just kind of a cheesy entry into an otherwise really good film universe, I would say, because I think The Conjuring 1 and 2 are really standout movies, and I think this one is also a standout, and that's kind of it. I think I'm expecting more out of Conjuring 3, just because I didn't really care for like the Curse of Yad Yadona or anything like that. So yeah, with that being said, it's cool to see more expansion into the story and how and where the story was and where it goes in the future. So it's exciting to see more pieces of the puzzle, so to speak. So go watch this. It's number 3 on my list, and we're gonna now go into number 4 here. So for number 4, I have The Hills Have Eyes, not the Wes Craven original film, but the 2006 remakes from Fox Searchlight Pictures. This is actually directed by a duo, Alexander Aja and Gregory Levasseur, from the really good French horror film High Tension is what I was trying to say. Sorry, I got kind of choked up there. So this duo comes from a really strong background. High Tension's probably another discussion for a different video. Really good slasher film, by the way. But The Hills Have Eyes is also a really great remake to come out, just because remakes themselves kind of have a negative taste in people's mouths, just because most remakes are kind of like a slap to the original's face. But I feel like this one was not really a slap to the original's face. In another way, it was like a love letter, because I think it pays a great homage to just all the gore and all the craziness that goes on, but I also think it kind of defines itself with its own story and narrative that it chooses to follow. So it's pretty cool to see, and just the story alone is really unique, just being stranded out in the middle of nowhere with really no help, regardless of whether you can or cannot get a cell phone signal. You're kind of at the mercy of the desert, and not only that, you're at the mercy of whatever's hunting you, which in this case appears to be a group of cannibalistic mutants. And I think The Hills Have Eyes is a strong remake. I know that there's a Hills Have Eyes 2, but I think that sequel to this one is not as good, and it doesn't really hold that much ground, I guess, next to it, just because this is a better movie right here. And yeah, the cast is really great. I like the simple premise of the story, and I like all the intense scenes and action. I guess I should say murders, right? They're all really well shot. There's a lot of, like I said, tension, and it helps create a really great atmosphere. And I think the camera work is really good. and it's just a fun horror film. I remember watching and being scared of, and to this day I feel like it is pretty damn unsettling to watch and see kind of unfold, especially for certain moments and scenes and parts in the movie. So be sure to catch this movie on HBOMax right now. It is streaming, so there is no excuse. It's number 4 on the list here, and now once this trailer ends, we're gonna go into number 5, which is actually a big callback, but another classic from Wes Craven. So coming in from Wes Craven from 1984 was New Line Cinema's A Nightmare on Elm Street, which is actually really genre-defining slasher film. It came out, along with Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers, and you had your kind of typical slasher films where the character is just kind of indestructible and runs at you, but then we get A Nightmare on Elm Street that kind of decided to change the game a little bit. Wes Craven approached this film, and he actually wrote it and directed it himself, and he approached it as, kind of basically a nightmare gone wrong, where the nightmare actually does end up affecting you, and in this form, it's going to be Freddy Krueger. And there's a lot of other lore and, added story that comes with the sequels that this movie generated, but specifically I'm going to be talking about just the first one because I feel like it has the most horror elements to it. I feel like the sequels kind of get a bit silly, but not too much, but some of them are kind of a little over the top and don't really kind of hold that really good horror feeling that you get when you're watching these movies. I think the cast is really strong. You get a really good, strong female heroine to come out of this movie, so that's a big plus. We also see Johnny Depp in one of his first on-screen roles, and it's just awesome. I think that this is a strong contender for a big, famous icon, almost on the same level as Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees. I feel like those are like the top 3 threshold characters that you would consider when you're thinking about, horror films from the 80s almost, and also just, horror icons that still last to this day, because there's still costumes, there's still all this good stuff. So go watch it. It's number 5 on the list here. And now we're going to get into the honorable mentions. I have 3 here for you guys, so let's get into those real quick. So this is going to be another one from Wes Craven. This is going to be 1996's Scream from Dimension Films. And again, like I said, it's directed and written by Wes Craven. It's actually, again, another genre-defining slasher film. We had Freddy Krueger in 1984, and then Wes Craven comes back with 1996's Scream, and he just kind of plays with your mind and keeps everything a mystery with who the slasher actually really is. And I think that twist alone gave way for a lot of other new films to come out, where it doesn't really have to be someone that's deranged or fictional. It could be the person closest to you that could be trying to kill you and take your life. And I think that is pretty damn scary. My bad. I think I said that Wes Craven wrote this too, but it was actually written by Kevin Williamson and directed by Wes Craven. So I think that their duo really brought this movie to life and elevated it to a really great height. It spawned a ton of sequels. Well, not a ton. I think 3 more. So I'm kind of exaggerating there, obviously. But Scream 2, Scream 3, and Scream 4, and I believe there is a brand new one that's being developed right now for either 2021 later this year or early 2022. So that'll be 5 Screams in total. I really think Scream 1 is just the better film. It has the most mystery and the better narrative, I would say. Scream 2 kind of gets lost a little bit just with all the kind of twists that it tries to do. Scream 3, I didn't really like too much. I liked the information that it gave and what it filled for as far as the overall plot. And then Scream 4 was actually a pretty good remake, or not remake, but kind of reboot sequel kind of thing, where they wanted to revamp the franchise. I think it did a really good job, and it had a great callback, and of course it had the titular character of Sydney, played by Neve Campbell, coming back for all 4 of the films, and she's actually going to be coming back for Scream 5, so that's a pretty big plus. And I feel like this is a pretty dang popular movie, so if you haven't seen it by now, you really should. It's the honorable mention for a reason. So now we're going to get into the second honorable mention here. So now for number 2 in the honorable mention list, it's going to be Jacob's Ladder. It's a TriStar Picture film from 1990. It stars Tim Robbins, and it's just a straight up psychological mind effery, I would say. It's definitely an iconic film. I was reading that it actually influenced Silent Hill just for kind of the grotesque imagery that it kind of showcases, with things kind of moving at a really, really fast pace and then being edited differently on post-production. And just the story alone, where you don't really know what's going on because there's a lot of turns and twists, and it's a really good film that I think a lot of people kind of don't know about. It did get a remake, but I hear that the remake doesn't really have much to do with this version and story that this one has to do with. So this one's kind of about purgatory and afterlife, and it plays with that idea, and it's kind of just unsettling in the imagery that it shows and how it's shot, and what we see unfold on screen. It has a great cast, like I said, Tim Robbins. It has Ving Rhames also makes an appearance. There's also a couple of other familiar faces that you will recognize just by seeing their face rather than me telling you their name. So I think that's pretty cool. And yeah, I think it's a fun film to watch, and if you've never ever seen it before, then I think you're definitely sleeping on it, because it will kind of throw you off, and just how weird it can get, and how strange and how confusing that the movie actually makes you, because it kind of unsettles you in that way. So definitely go watch it, and you'll see a surprise appearance by Macaulay Culkin if you guys do watch this movie. So that's kind of a big plus. So now, with that being said, we're going to go on to number 3 here in the last of the honorable mentions list, and it's going to be 1982's Poltergeist, which was written by Steven Spielberg and directed by Toby Hooper, who is responsible for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. So that's pretty awesome. It's kind of crazy to imagine that Steven Spielberg actually wrote a scary film. The dude's responsible for E.T.'s Extraterrestrial. Like, that's insane. And he did Indiana Jones and stuff like that, but I mean, that's also awesome of him to do, just because it branches him out and it gets him in a different field. And it's awesome. It's a great classic haunted house ghost story film, and it's fun, and it does mess with you, and it does have a reason for being a notorious haunted house type film. And it's anchored by Craig T. Nelson, who you guys know him as the voice of Mr. Incredible, or Bob Parr. And I think the other cast is kind of not well-known actors and actresses, just because of what I was reading as far as some trivia was going, where both director and writer wanted some relatively unknown people to portray the cast, and the only one that they really got that was a big name was actually Craig T. Nelson himself. So that's pretty cool. There's a lot of cool little behind the scenes stuff that happened in this film, just with some kind of like bad omens, like similar to the Exorcist production. And and I think that the story itself is really unique and different for a horror film, and I think it's really cool to see kind of this type of film from 1982, just because it's disjarring, and it kind of has some moments where there's some crazy body mutilation and stuff like that going on, and just weird things being seen. And yeah, I think the movie is definitely elevated by such a great cast, and they really sold the movie, and I think it was really well directed and shot, and it does have good moments of humor and moments of family togetherness, I guess I could describe it as. And I think it just works so well just all together, and I think there's no other better haunted house movie other than the Poltergeist, just because I think it's just a strong movie. There was a remake, but I don't think it was that good. But yeah, definitely catch this movie, guys. It's definitely something that's very slept on. So yeah, go watch it right now, guys. It's streaming on HBOMax, and that's going to pretty much conclude this video. That was my 3 honorable mentions, and then before that was the top 5. So if you guys have been keeping up, I did this for the 3 other streaming services. So Hulu's was just dropped recently, and I did the Netflix and Amazon Prime, so be sure to check those ones out. And yeah, that's it, guys. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.